Extra my wrong is off in case anything random pops up here.
I can't get my computer.
Yeah.
Lacey, I'm just checking. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, just checking. We got about 1 minute.
Megan, do you happen to have an extra pen? I wasn't sure if I should swipe one of those. Okay. All right. Ooh,
Pick your, choose your own adventure.
grade school. Man.
I know.
Randall, you ready? Yes. Megan, Ava, good? All right. Want to welcome everybody to our December 22nd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Bring it to order and we'll get started as we always do. We'll start with approval of our minutes from our previous meeting on the 24th of November. If you've had time to review and look, see if there's any additions, adjustments need to be made, or we would move right into a motion for approval. If anybody got anything?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the November 24th meeting.
Second. Go ahead and roll call. Megan, please.
Hadley Goldberg,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
Adam Brown,
Aye.
Trevor Branch,
Aye.
Lacey Colbert,
Abstain.
Chad Zickafoose, Suzanne Daniel,
Hi.
Pete Renfro, and Kayla Berger.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Seeing as we have no scheduled visitors or guests or unfinished business to attend to, we'll move right on to our new business. First application, letter A on the agenda, is a zoning amendment 25-0026. Property location is 1308 South 3rd Street. Property owner is Jastco Land Company, LLC. Existing zoning is C2 General Commercial District, and the requested zoning is C4 Central Business District. Are you taking this one?
Yes, sir.
All right, Randall, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening. This is a pretty straightforward rezoning request. It's, as you can see, as Jeff said, it's zone C2. The properties north and south are zone C4 as well. Same criteria we typically ask you to consider. We look at what the existing uses are, what the existing zoning, guidance from the comprehensive plan, and any trends or anything that's happening generally in the area that would influence your decision or to rezone or recommend rezoning this property. In this case, as I said, the properties north and south are zone C4, so that's the Central Business District commercial zoning. The property to the east is single-family residential. It's a little, there's C2 across the street, but it's largely vacant east and west of the property, and it is developed north and south. There's a single-family house to the north and a existing business to the south. So we took a look at the comprehensive plan. Obviously, it recommends the highest and best use, and that's pretty much a given for anywhere in the city. And we look at zoning or make recommendations through zoning, not just at what compatible districts are appropriate, but which district can provide some strategies to kind of mitigate issues with future development, either existing issues or development that's proposed. And we do that through the the zoning, the setbacks that are assigned to each zoning district, the required buffer yards between districts, and then other elements of the site design, whether that's landscaping, screening, signage, and things like that. So we didn't identify any significant issues with the proposed zoning, the site, or anything like that. The comprehensive plan recommends this area be commercial, and it takes another, a little bit deeper dive if you look into the Onward Ozark plan, where it recognizes this part of Third Street is that it's called the Third Street District Plan. So it's a sub area plan within the plan. And it really just recognizes this area as commercial. It doesn't go into any detail about zoning districts, whether it be C2 or C4. It just recognizes that services that are complementary to downtown and to the character of Third Street be supported. So some future development considerations: water and sewer are adjacent to the site. Any development issues with respect to the site itself, so stormwater, parking, that type of thing, will happen at the time of development. That's not an issue that we'd really ask you to consider, or you should consider necessarily at the zoning stage. Third Street's an arterial, so it supports commercial use. There's standards within the overlay district that would apply. In this case, rezoning it to C4 actually will help their development, as it'll reduce some of their setbacks north and south, because those properties are also zoned C4, and it will reduce some of their buffer yard issues as well. So they'll have some work to do on the backside after the property is zoned, to do some minor subdivision work to kind of work through some property line issues. Other than that, all the requirements of notification have been met. We recommend approval, and I don't think there were any significant comments from the public. I do note the applicants are here if there's any questions for them. So Megan, I, or Ava would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. And as last meeting, we kind of tried to reform it a little bit to, if we have any questions, to direct to Randall or Megan or anybody for staff. Now would be time. If you haven't, we can always readdress later in our comments time. Does anybody have anything at the moment we want to address? Hadley, you good?
Yeah, I'm okay for right now. Thanks.
Okay. Then I do want to offer up to the applicant, if you'd like to say anything further or add to what Randall said.
That all sounded good to me. I think that's questions.
Okay. Just want to give you the opportunity. Thank you. And with that being said, we'll open it up to any public comment or questions that might be in place for this particular application. We're so crowded, I can't hardly see anybody moving. Okay. We're going to say we're good to go on the public portion. We'll go ahead and close that and open it up to the commission for any comments or concerns or motions to move forward. What do you got, fellas? Anything?
I got a question for the applicant. So looking here, the plan is, it says daycare facility. I know you guys have that location, I think, south of Godfather's. So is the plan here that this is going to be for a specific age group? So I just was curious kind of on those specs.
Before you answer, can I have your name and address first?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
For the
Jacob
record.
Corey Luter, address is 1202 North 10th Ave here in Ozark.
Thank you.
And we own the land at 1308 South 3rd Street. Where we rent the infant center, so the babies, we have to leave that spot.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And so
Okay.
we are going to be moving the infants, the babies,
Okay.
so 0 to 2.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious. Thank you.
And then the one behind Sands will stay where it is.
That'll stay where it is. Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Adam, you good? Trevor? Good. Pete? Oh, we're all good. Looks like we're waiting for a motion. Who would like to jump on board and take it?
I'll move to adjourn. I'll move to approve.
Adjourn?
Sorry.
That's a little quick.
Sorry, a little premature. I'll move to approve zoning amendment 25-0026 based on staff recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Caleb, roll call. Megan, please.
Caleb Berger.
Aye.
Chad Zickafoos.
Aye.
Adam Brown.
Aye.
Trevor Branch.
Aye.
Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
Suzanne Daniel. Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
Lacey Colbert.
Aye.
And Pete Renfro.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, give me just a moment to get where I need to be here. Okay. Second application on the agenda this evening is a annexation, application 25-0012. The property location is 2511 North 24th Street. Property owner is Timothy Johnson and Melinda R. Johnson. Are you up on this one as well, Randall? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. The next two agenda items kind of go concert together as usual. There's an annexation petition we'd like you to consider, and then there's a zoning application that would kind of go along with that. So some of these slides are duplicates, but I'll try to make it a little, well, I really probably won't be able to, but we'll go through this. This is 10 acres that's completely surrounded by city limits in every direction. It's just located just south of Longview and Ozark Heights subdivision, and it's just north of Creek Bridge subdivision. It is a county zoned property right now. The property owner would like to do some subdivision development work in accordance with our requirements within our urban service area agreement with Christian County. It has to be connected to the city utilities, and it has to be annexed or another configuration. In this case, annexation is about the best opportunity for this property to develop and move forward. So it is in good standing with the state of Missouri. As I said, it's contiguous to the city limits in all directions. It's within Tier 1. It's within 300 feet of water and sewer service. We'll talk more about the zoning, but it's basically single family or it's residential in every direction. The comprehensive plan provides some guidance with respect to annexation. And this statement, I think we put in every presentation, but it's probably more applicable here than anywhere, where you have a property that's an enclave or an island of unincorporated property in the city that really needs to be developed under city standards, and it needs to be connected to city utilities, the city's utilities. So, and again, this is basically to prevent or discourage any future septic tanks or private domestic wells. That's pretty standard language within our comprehensive plan. It does recommend this property be single family in terms of use. All the requirements have been met. I don't think there was any opposition, and I could be corrected if I'm wrong. But staff doesn't see any issues or propose any issues with annexing this property at this time. And the board will consider your recommendation on January 12th. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commission have any questions currently for Mr. Randall? Okay. The applicant, would you like to say anything, ma'am, towards anything in addition to what he has said? You're good to go.
I'd like to make one
And if you would state your name and address, please.
Melinda Johnson, 2511 North 24th Street. My understanding is that the existing home, which is on septic and well, would be grandfathered in and not required to connect to city services until which time the well fails or the septic fails. Is this correct?
That's correct. And if you hypothetically were to subdivide the property, that any new homes or any new development would have to connect to the city's.
Right, of course.
Water
And
yes.
the proposal in the next line item is to build a single family home on it, and it will be connected to city properties. I just
Okay.
want to make sure I would be grandfathered.
Okay, thank you. Anyone question towards that? If not, we'll go ahead and open it up to the public for any comment toward this particular application for annexation. Again, no movement. We'll go ahead and close. He's good in the back. Go ahead and close the public portion and open up a commission for questions, comments, or motion. Pretty clear cut.
I'll move to approve annexation 25-0012 based on staff recommendation.
Second, Mr. Adam Brown. Roll call, Megan.
Adam Brown.
Aye.
Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
Lacey Colbert.
Aye.
Trevor Branch.
Aye.
Caleb Berger.
Aye.
Pete Renfro. Chad Zickafus. Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
And Suzanne Daniel. The ayes have it.
Very good. Thank you. Hello.
update on the previous slide.
Can you hold that to yourself, please?
It'll be
Yeah,
considered
can
on,
you escort him out, please? Thank you. Did you get that notated? I'm glad you're here. You're worth some. Good you're here. Thank you for that update. I lost track where I'm at. Okay.
Amendment.
Moving on to our zoning amendment. 25-0027. Property location, again, 2511 North 24th Street. Owner saying Timothy Johnson and Belinda R. Johnson. Existing zoning as it's coming in, if it passes with the alderman, is agricultural residential district in the county. Once it is approved, the requested zoning would be RSF1 single family district. Mr. Whitman, it is yours once again.
yes, sir. As I said, this is kind of the second half of this request. It would be rezone this property to RSF1. It is 10 acres. It's surrounded by R1B and R1C property. There's a retired single-family zoning districts. The considerations we look at are the surrounding zoning trends. In this case, the properties are adjacent to platted subdivisions. It's adjacent to a stormwater area that's part of those subdivisions, but it doesn't affect the zoning. This property would allow theoretically for it to be subdivided into single-family lots of 8,000 square feet. I don't think that's in the cards for this property in the immediate future. But other than that, the plan does recommend this whole area be single-family or residential in nature. It does support zoning in connection to the city's water and sewer system, again, to prevent private septic tank expansion or to eliminate them if possible, as well as domestic wells. So as noted by Mayor Currence, this will be considered by the Board of Aldermen on January 19th rather than 20th, boy. January 20th. Thank you. I apologize for that. Staff doesn't have any concerns. We support this proposal and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions directed towards Randall at the moment? Looks like we're good to go. Anything? Good to go? Open to the public. Any comments or questions towards this particular application? Thank you. Gotcha. All right. Open and close there. Open it to the commission. Anything? Would anyone like to approve this application besides Hadley?
I actually had a question.
You're rolling. Oh, you did. I'm sorry. Question.
I just had a question. Is there anything that we need to consider? Because I saw there's a 3-acre property going in the northeast corner for road access or anything like that. Is there anything we need to worry about for that? Or is that not something we need to consider?
Yeah, that would, if there were something to consider, it would be part of the platting of the property. So
Okay.
it'd be a different,
Okay. That's what I thought. I was just checking. Okay.
yeah, it would be, yes.
No more questions.
Yeah, I think if the plan moves forward, it's going to build one house.
Yes.
So it probably be a shared driveway to access you and the new house.
Yes.
That's kind of where we're at the moment. But if it ever moves from that, it would be the platting process to get that approved, right?
Yes, sir.
Copy that. Very good. Good question. Okay. Anyone? Everybody good?
I'll make a motion to approve zoning amendment 25-0027.
I'll second. It's my personality.
Likes to be a participant.
Based on staff recommendation.
Thank you,
I'll
Adam.
second.
Second towards Mr. Goldberg. Roll call.
Trevor Branch,
Aye.
Caleb Berger,
Aye.
Pete Renfro,
Aye.
Chad Zickafus,
Aye.
Adam Brown,
Aye.
Lacey Colbert,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
Suzanne Daniel,
Aye.
and Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Lacey, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you. You speak up if you got something now, okay?
I sure will.
Okay. All right. Last item on the agenda for movement is the adoption of the 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission calendar. And I'll just ask, is there anything that has changed beyond the third Monday except for holiday? And is it all the same?
I don't believe so. I would defer that to Megan, honestly, to.
You're up.
No, there is no change.
I tried to look at it, I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time, but I figured it was the same, so.
I did have a quick question, Megan. Can you just refresh? I know I asked this maybe 2 years ago. What's the plan if there's winter weather or something like that? Is it if the city's closed, then we don't meet? I was just curious if you could refresh that.
You know what? We'll have to look into that,
Okay.
but it's a good question.
Okay.
Unless the mayor has any input on what the board does.
To me, if the roads, if the city hall is closed, the road issue, it should carry over.
We'll confirm that and get back to
Yeah, we will.
everybody.
I was just curious
Yeah.
what the process
Yeah,
was.
that's a
Thank
good
you.
question,
Yeah.
though. Good
It is,
question.
because especially with the winter coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it's coming.
Not next week, but yeah. I mean, we could meet over virtual.
Of course, I don't know, it'd be the first time that if the AC quit in December, we wouldn't be able to come, it'd get too hot. It's supposed to be 73 degrees, I think, Thursday or Friday. Well, I think because this takes a motion, I do need to open it up to the public for comment. Are you okay with our calendar? Okay. I'll close it and open it up to the commission for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2026 calendar as presented.
Second. I'll take second on that one. Go ahead and call it.
Jeff Garrison,
Yeah, aye.
Chad Zickafoose.
Aye.
Pete Renfro. Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
Lacey Colbert.
Aye.
Trevor Branch.
Aye.
Caleb Burger.
Aye.
Adam Brown.
Aye.
Suzanne Daniels.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Well, now we do have some items to discuss, and I'll refer to the first one, which is and you should have everybody should have got a copy. I don't really know how to identify it at the top. There it is, multifamily housing design standards we're going to talk about for a minute. Mr. Whitman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. We had a presentation last Thursday with the Board of Aldermen at a non-legislative meeting where we went over the same presentation, and we were responding to a early directive that I kind of received when I started almost a year ago, to look a little closer at the city's multifamily zoning requirements and kind of pare that down. It's really looking at the design standards for development projects that are multifamily in nature. And I think it's fair to say that's not just apartment buildings, but that could look at a variety of different housing units. And we'll talk more about that. We'll dive a little bit deeper into it, but just to kind of give you an overview. So we're going to look at multifamily housing, anything other than single family, if you will. And then we'll talk just very briefly about some code amendments or proposed code amendments we're working on with respect to planned developments. So an easy way to kind of digest this is looking at where we're at now with our existing codes. So we have I would say a pretty decent amount of property that's already zoned R3 and R4 in the city. Both of those acreages there, 191 that's zoned R3 and 171 each represent about 2% of the city's geography or land area. So that's a pretty significant amount of property that is not developed, but is already currently zoned for multifamily. So any proposed amendments would work towards giving us something as a staff to review those developments against. It wouldn't change the zoning of those properties. It would just be amendments to the existing codes under those zoning districts or other codes. So this really is just looking at those two, but there's other properties that are zoned for patio homes, duplexes, and things like that. So that's kind of another element to that. The city does have some design requirements in place for single family development, and there's some multifamily development guidelines or design standards in the general mixed use zoning district, but there's really nothing in place to guide the type of development that I think we would like to see in terms of site design, building design, and how it kind of addresses friction areas and things like that with adjoining properties. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And as the last bullet says, the only thing we really have to rely on right now is the good grace of a developer and what the market kind of dictates these projects look like. So if we want to do something, or we want a higher caliber of development with respect to building and site design and how those projects integrate into the adjoining neighborhoods or the properties or the projects next to them, and how they kind of, the relationship they have to the streets and the city's other infrastructure, then we're going to have to make recommendations to change our codes. And these are recommendations too from our comprehensive plan. So I'll show you that in just a second. So where do we want to be? We want to get to a point where we have less stress and friction for the community, adjoining property owners, for you all, when you consider a zoning case to rezone something to multifamily. We want to better accommodate and integrate multifamily and some of those other missing middle housing types within existing neighborhoods and existing development, so we don't have that friction between those different land uses and different zoning districts. And again, the comprehensive plan is guiding us to having more diverse housing in the city for a more diverse population. And when we say diverse population, it's young people, it's older people who are transitioning into leaving high school, leaving college, and they want to find a place to settle down, start a family. And then it's those folks that want to downsize and stay in Ozark or stay where they're at. They like the area, they like what Ozark has to offer, but they want a different housing option. Maybe they want a smaller house, or they want something with less maintenance. So all of these things kind of tie back into that ability to have development that's more livable, it's more desirable, and it offers different things for different people in different parts of their life. So we're looking at this from a proactive standpoint. We're trying to put these code amendments or draft something ahead of development that we know is going to happen. And we've got some likelihood of development happening next year, at least 2 planned developments. We've got a number of properties that we anticipate will be developed at a higher density rather than single family, some that you've weighed in on and you've recommended zoning for. So it's a good time to do this, and we need to get to work on it. So what do we do to get there? As I said, we're proposing an actual code amendment. So these would be standards within our zoning code that would put standards on multifamily, but it would also look at actually allowing townhouses. We don't have that definition in our zoning code to actually allow a townhouse. And when I say a townhouse, that's a home that has a shared property line or shared property wall on more than just one side. We allow patio homes, which is basically a duplex where they share a common wall, and you can own your half of the duplex. A townhouse would allow 3 or 4 different units to be tied together by a common wall, but you could individually own that unit in the lot that goes north and south, or back in front of it, or however the configuration is. So we would look at adding those definitions. We would like to look at allowing pocket neighborhoods, and we've got some examples of that, and other types of mixed housing within a project. So one good example is that a planned development could come forward that wants to have single-family, multifamily townhouses, duplexes, and it would be a real struggle for them to do that because we don't allow all those different land use configurations or those different housing types. So this kind of goes along with the planned development amendments we'll talk about in a little bit. So last thing I'll say is that our comprehensive plan does recommend that we work on these things. It talks about having diversified housing, talks about affordable housing, but so these are things that we're directed or guided to do by our comprehensive plan. It also encourage us to look at smart codes, and this is a topic that could go way off course real fast. Chad can probably speak to this almost better than I can because he's in the middle of this in Springfield. And I personally don't think smart codes are right for Ozark right now, but that doesn't mean we can't work towards having some codes that have some of those characteristics and migrate more towards a design-based code rather than just a use-based code. And when I say that, we really, right now, your codes put use at the very top, and that's the first thing you consider is what's allowed within a zoning district. And design is really at the bottom. And in some places, as I said, you don't even have any design standards. So we want to change that dynamic and move design to the top, and those are the things that guide the type of development it is, and it aids you in making decisions, and it really pushes use down below that. So that's kind of what smart codes or form-based codes do. They rely more on design than they do on use. Two ways of looking at this is a quantitative or qualitative approach. A quantitative approach, I would say, is something we can measure. We can measure a setback. We can measure the density of a project. In this case, we're not talking about necessarily changing any of these dynamics. We may, when we get into it a little closer, but the number of dwelling units that are allowed in an R2 district or an R3, R4 district, we're not looking at talking about changing that. Really, the lot coverage, the stormwater design, the parking, a lot of those things will dictate how many dwelling units they can get out of a project. It's basic. When they start to lay out a project, they know the geometry of the site only allows so many buildings. The building codes only allow buildings so tall without getting into some complex building design and architecture. So a lot of those things are going to naturally be at play. And we're not talking about necessarily amending anything. We're really looking at things that change the relationship of the building itself to the site and to other things, and the appearance, things like buffer yards, landscaping, setbacks in some cases, where the parking is in relation to the building, and how many amenities they would have to construct or would construct if they're building an apartment complex. How big is the swimming pool? Do they have other amenities that they're required to have if they have a certain density of the project? So you all went through long before my time when you have a standard for single family developments that they have to have a swimming pool of a certain size if they meet a threshold for lots. It would be something very similar to that. So some of the qualitative stuff that's a little more subjective that we can't really, it's hard to tie down what architecture looks like or what materials look like, but we can put standards in there that say that they can't have a certain kind, or they have to have a combination of materials, or they have to combine 2 to 3 different materials, and how those things are kind of designed within the building, where the stairway is, where the doors are, where the windows are, and what relationship that doorway may have to the street, the parking lot, trails, other things like that, how the buildings are laid out within the site. So we'll look at those things. We're going to look at standards for detached garages, carports, on-site storage. These are trends that are happening. You can see new developments happening where it's not uncommon for it's not mini storage, I'm going to be clear, but it's a bank of, and I've got some photos, it's a bank of basically small garages or car garages where people can store their kayak, their bicycle, some of their stuff that they can't fit in their apartment, or a vehicle. So it's things like that. So where do we want those on site? Do we want those adjacent to a sidewalk, or where are they at in relation? So we'll look at those things. And as I said, we'll look at amenities as well. So I mentioned earlier this term missing middle. These are diagrams that are used all over the nation. I didn't create these. I wish we could take credit for it, but we didn't. But missing middle really speaks to housing types that fall between single family and high-rise apartments. And it could be everything from a townhouse to a fourplex, a threeplex, a duplex, courtyard or patio homes, pocket neighborhoods, just about everything you can think of that's not single family. So those are kind of that area that we want to target to allow under certain conditions. So what we're going to look at are duplex or patio homes, maybe some design standards. So the survey you have in front of you is asking you a series of questions to rank these, which I'm sure number 3 will be the one at the top of your list. But these are all duplexes. They could be patio homes, and it's hard to tell. And I think that's the point, is that they integrate very well into their surroundings. These could fit within a neighborhood. The one, number 2 on the top right, is a duplex. When we stared at it, we didn't notice it right away. It looks kind of like a series of townhouses, but the 2 garage doors kind of give it away. That's what I would believe a patio home to be, but those 2 units are connected. So we're looking at what kind of standards we would apply to patio homes and duplexes, if any at all, and what that would be. So we've given you a list or a menu of things to consider. You can fill out this survey. You can email it to us. You can call us and have a one-on-one discussion. It's whatever you would like to do. We're just trying to put some ideas out in front of you to give us some initial feedback about this particular type of housing form. So again, we're going to look at townhouses. We're going to work on drafting a definition of a townhouse, some standards for that. Same things apply that I just that I just rambled about, but townhouses could be multiple units attached. It could be 3, it could be 5 or 6, it could be vertical or it could be horizontal. Some of these are from Ozark, and they're just vertical units that are attached. They can either be rented or owned, but that wall separates them, so it does allow individual home ownership. So in speaking about multifamily, these are some really cool pictures, and I think everybody would love to have this in their city. These are really cool building forms and great design. It's really hard to get developers to commit to this kind of project. This is more realistically what the apartments we get in this area. These are all apartments from immediately around Ozark. The one in the bottom left is in Galloway Village. It's very popular. It's the example most look at and say that's what we would love to have. But it's really based on the same template or the same floor plan. There's a stairway up the middle, and there's multiple apartments, but they're basically the same, just different configurations. So we've given you a survey that includes these 4 pictures and characteristics, from amenities to materials to placement of the building, things like that. So we're asking you to give us a little feedback. The last category we have, and this is kind of a new idea, and we wouldn't have put this in there, but we do have somebody that's interested in doing this. So these are very unique. Some might call these tiny homes. I don't know if that term is appropriate. They're small houses. They could be duplexes, or they could be houses attached to one another. In these pictures, they're all single-family houses, and they don't look very large, but I think they're more of a transitional housing type where somebody buys into this community, or perhaps they rent it, they share common ground, amenities, common space, everything's taken care of. There's parking on the periphery, there's gardens and things like that. So as I said, we've got a developer that's probably going to want to do this, and it's in our best interest if we look at it ahead of time and we have some standards to guide them rather than them just submitting something however they want.
This is very popular with 55 and over communities in South Florida now. Like, a lot of them are doing that, and they're giving, like, they have a clubhouse and, like,
Yeah.
but I know it's very big at 55 and over. I've seen it a lot.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and I should have said this early on, that the 55 and older, the retirement communities, we don't intend to put anything in our code that talks about who lives there, that a project is marketed only towards young people, any retirees or anything like that. That would be discrimination. We can't do that. A developer can do that. He can aim to rent the units or sell them or target a particular market, but that's not something we do, and we wouldn't put in our zoning code. That'll just take care of itself, I think it's fair to say. So other than that, I went through that really fast, probably faster than I did with the Board of Aldermen, but I'll be glad to field any questions you have. You're welcome to take this home with you. I can be glad to email this to you in a digital form. We would like your feedback, because that kind of gives us kind of a launching pad to start working on what these design standards will look like. We're going to dive heavily into other communities and steal the great work they've done. We're just disclosing that now. We've already started a little bit of this work, but we want to kind of get a sense of what you all will accept, what you might hear from your constituents, or other projects you've seen, or if you've traveled somewhere and you've been somewhere and you've seen something you like, or something you would like to have when Chad decides to downsize and retire, what kind of home is he looking for? So yeah, I think I've carried on long enough. What questions can I answer?
One that came to mind for me, during the code change process, I know it cannot affect already developed acreage, but can the changes affect already zoned undeveloped acreage?
Yes, that would be our aim.
Okay.
And it could affect already developed, already zoned properties hypothetically, if they go in and change a percentage of the project, or if there's damage done to it. We'll have to look at that. That's a particular thing on our list too. So, but generally speaking, it would not affect something that's already developed, no.
Right. But it will, to clarify, if it's not developed yet, it will.
Yes. And these,
Because they haven't applied for anything yet.
That's
quote
right.
unquote. Yeah.
yeah, and all of these, we'll call them code amendments, or these new codes would apply at the time of development. They would be in place when a property is zoned, but it would be something we would look at when they submit building plans, site plans, and things like that. So, or even the subdivision phase. So
Would everybody want it to be emailed? Is that easiest for everybody? We can just.
I will do
it
that.
and
I'll do
reply?
that anyway. Yes.
We'll just do that? Okay, go ahead, Chad.
Just will you please put a deadline in the email and when you want the survey?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Do you have a deadline in mind? How much time do you? I don't want to ruin
You call it.
I don't want to ruin your Christmas holiday by telling you it has to be done by the first of the year.
Don't say the 25th.
You need a couple weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
First week of January.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, yes.
Anyone else, or are we free to move ahead and talk about PUD for a minute?
I had a couple questions. So Mirabella, like I know you kind of talked and you kind of said obviously new things. So Mirabella's kind of come through. It's been through the board as well. Now they have not done the preliminary plots yet. So is that something that, like, is that something you could foresee with Mirabella, or kind of they're already past that step a little bit?
Well, a couple things. They did submit a preliminary plat, so it was approved at the same time the zoning was. And that was, I think Ozark was very fortunate that they did that project the way they did. They could have went a different direction and it could have been very cumbersome down the road. So fortunately, their plan development includes a lot of this stuff. So that's
Yeah,
great
that's what I was
motivation
thinking.
to see how it works out and kind of incorporate some of that into our code amendments. But yeah, normally, and we'll talk about the plan development process in a minute. But typically, we would rely on our base zoning standards to include in a plan development. But in a plan development, you can go above and beyond that. If they're trying to negotiate more density and things like that, they could go above and beyond what the zoning code is, and that's what Mirabella did.
Thank you.
Lacey, you need anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Everybody good to move ahead? You're up.
Yeah, so the second part of this is to look at our plan development regulations. The city's existing PUD standards are, I don't know a lot about their history. I think they were drafted, I would say decades ago. They were probably followed a pretty standard template and format and process that most communities had. They look very familiar to what Springfield had used for a long time. We just recognize there's some holes in it and they need to be updated. There needs to be some qualifying information in it. So in other words, that encourages somebody who doesn't want to go through the normal zoning process. They don't see a PUD as an escape to just rezone something and they think they're going to get more density out of it. The first statement that I have there under number 1 is kind of that qualifier that most PUD ordinances have in it. In other words, what they want to do can't be done unless they go through a plan development process. So if a developer wants to have an integrated uses and have single family right next to multifamily or 2-family and have higher density in some areas and preserve open space and have a very integrated development with higher standards and do all kinds of fun, crazy stuff, our existing zoning code isn't going to allow it. And that's really the only time you should consider a plan development. And the ordinance should specify some of that criteria. It should qualify when you all should qualify or approve one and when you shouldn't. Not every project probably deserves to be zoned this way. So it needs to kind of call that out. That's something we need to work on and amend. And it does need to include a variety of different housing types and different amenities and things and give them ability to plat and zone things in concert together. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with doing a different development where you have multiple zoning districts is zoning has to go to a property line. It can't just arbitrarily go out to the middle of a piece of property. And if you're not doing that in concert with planning or platting with it, it's really hard. It's hard for a developer to do that. You'd be constantly amending things. And it's hard to approve a zoning when you don't know where the property lines are. So PUDs provide that flexibility, not just for the city, but for the developer to have some fair degree of certainty that he can go forward and do what he wants and he can do it as he goes along. So that's the first thing we want to do. We also want to look at the process. The process that's in the existing zoning code is a little bit, in my opinion, ambiguous. It's hard to kind of follow. I think there's some clerical issues in it where the word plat and plan is used incorrectly. We would propose a very basic process like this where they bring forward a concept plan to you all, to the board, to the public, and say, this is generally what we want to do. We'd like some initial feedback. They take that back, and then they submit a preliminary development plan. And a preliminary development plan is very much where they approve, where you all and the board approves the zoning. But it's at a fairly high elevation. And it's usually on a large piece of property. And then the final step is they bring back a final development plan. So that usually comes alongside the preliminary plat when they say, okay, we're platting this part of the property and this is exactly how we're going to use it, where the buildings are going to be located, where the property lines are in relation to the uses and the zoning that's specified in the preliminary development plan. So that piece is somewhat missing from your existing code. We would add that back. There will be some times, I think, when it's not necessary to bring something to you all. Say hypothetically, it's a 100-acre project and they just want to develop one lot of it at a time. And that particular lot has to apply or has to align with the preliminary development plan, but staff can do that administratively. It's really not anything that needs to come back to you lot by lot by lot. If they're developing 50 acres of that 100 acres and they're submitting a preliminary plat, then you need to take a second look at the zoning and make sure that plat complies with the preliminary development plan. So there's a lot of nuances to that, but again, there's a lot of examples out there from other cities. Megan found one from Madison, Wisconsin that we are very fond of, and we will probably use that as a pattern to craft this revised code. So I think that's kind of the end of my presentation.
Will the PUD require a site plan? And will it be binding?
Good question. I think the final development plan would serve as a site plan, yes. In some
I
cases.
think it may be difficult for the commission to approve a PUD without some sort of a binding site plan. I mean, if you just have a packet of I don't know what I want to say, a wish list of what you want, the uses and the activities and things that you want. I mean, I think that leaves it, in my mind, that leaves it too open where, I mean, in other jurisdictions, the PUD requires a site plan and you're held to that. And then for your final development plan, it has to substantially conform to that exhibit that was in the PUD zoning that was passed by the board. So, I mean, I think we would want to consider that.
I think we may be saying the same thing.
Okay.
I'm just not saying it the right way. Because I think you're right. A final development plan, when they submit a site plan for that individual lot, it has to comply with the preliminary development plan, which is the zoning. That's when you all have approved the overlay that specifies what uses are, what the landscaping is, what the materials, all the details, what the ratio of units are to amenities and all that stuff. When they come back with the final development plan and a plat, if they're submitting one, or that has to comply with the preliminary development.
And we may be saying the same thing. I'm thinking, yeah, the preliminary plan in the PUD maybe would just show areas of, where the mixed use is going to be, where the commercial is going to be, where the residential single family is going to be. It doesn't have to have lot lines and exact number, but I think there needs to be more than just text, I guess, and we're probably saying the same thing, but
Yeah.
because really the PUD, it's your own zoning, and it's typically going to be a lesser requirement than straight zoning. Otherwise, you just go with straight zoning, right? So the PUD is going to allow more flexibility than a straight commercial zoning or residential zoning. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get it ironed out.
Yeah, I think kind of to your point, we need to provide some examples of what this would look like, what a preliminary development plan would look like, so that what the criteria is and how they're doing how they're laying out some fundamental geometry of what the property is going to look like. What area is going to be this use group, where the basic streets are going to be, where detention is, stormwater, and how, when you've got these really crazy dissimilar, if you've got business right next to commercial or manufacturing, how they're going to kind of come together. So all those things kind of have to be worked out in the narrative or the language of the PUD, but yes, you're right. We need it will have a plan that goes with it.
Can you go back a slide? Kind of along the line of what Chad was saying and asking, you've got, at least here, we've got 3 levels of approval. Am I seeing that right? And
Yes.
I'm trying to get some clarification. So you're asking that we're probably going to end up reviewing the initial concept ourselves and the Board of Aldermen. Once that's done, then we move to what we call the preliminary plat or plan, right? And again, we're both approving that. But then when we come to the final development plan, which I think maybe that's what we can call the site plan or the final plat or something. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Why would the Board of Aldermen not be required to approve that I don't mean it that way. Why would it be the planning and zoning or administrative only?
First thing I'd say is step number 2, a preliminary development plan, that is the zoning portion of it. So if you look at a typical process, there's 2 things that happen. Well, there's 3 things. It gets annexed into the city, and then it gets zoned, and then something gets platted. This would deal exclusively with the zoning aspect of it. Platting it, whether it's a minor subdivision or a major subdivision, is a separate process. There may be references to that plat just for clarity with respect to public improvements and things like that, but fundamentally, that's a different process that has to happen independently. And you all would review that just the way you do now, through a preliminary plat, and then staff would look at public improvements, and then a final plat would be filed. So it's very similar to that. So if you look at it as though the preliminary development plan is the zoning, once you all approve it and it goes to the board and they approve it, that's set. A final development plan, the only reason it wouldn't go to the board or it wouldn't come to you is if it's such a small site and it's literally it's an administrative ability to make sure that if it's a restaurant or a business, that it meets the setbacks that are specific to that zoning that you've already approved. And all staff is doing is making sure that that particular site conforms to the zoning. If it don't, in a situation where it might come to you all rather than the board, would just be if it's a little bit, I would say, I don't want to say controversial, if staff isn't 100% confident that it substantially conforms to that zoning, that they may be asking for a slight variation. And so we would probably have some criteria in the ordinance that says when staff can approve something, or staff would say it substantially conforms and it can be approved administratively. And it would say if it doesn't substantially conform, when it needs to come back to you for approval. And those are some of the nuances we have to work out.
Okay, so that's in process. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand that. So the final, you're calling it a final development plan, and we currently probably call it a final plat. Is that
No,
fair, or is that not fair?
No, it's more akin to what a site plan is, like Chad
okay.
said.
So when
Yeah.
you get, like Chad said, if you get this, okay, this house is going here, and you're not going to put another house on a lot until you move to this one. So we're being very specific on the final site / plat,
Yeah, plan,
plan.
yes.
Okay,
And-
verbiage is important.
Yeah. And
Words are important.
to make it confusing is, I wouldn't be surprised if there's time when you don't review a final development plan as an agenda item, and directly underneath it, you review a preliminary plat. Because those 2 things have to align. And they're going to want their zoning or their use tied to lot lines. And the preliminary plat is what's going to set that in concrete. So
Okay, got a lot of work to be done.
a lot of work to be done, yes, sir.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else you want to offer?
I think that's plenty, but
That's plenty. I don't want to miss anything. I think we've talked about everything. Commission comments? Anybody? Anybody and everybody? I'll see a lot of thumbs up. Administrative, anything else?
No, sir.
Megan,
No, I don't have anything.
Ava,
I did have one
Mayor
thing, I'm sorry.
Curran, are you good? Okay, come back to you.
It was December, when was our last meeting, Mayor? Yes,
It's the 15th.
yes. The board did approve a resolution to reappoint Lacey Coburn to the Planning and Zoning Commission, so I report that back to you.
Lacey, I don't know if you heard that, but you're still part of the team.
Oh, that's great news.
Okay. Glad to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time to make it happen tonight. Well, here we are again. One final thing to do for 2025.
I'm gonna let someone else do it.
No, go ahead. Don't break trend. Come on.
I move to adjourn officially this time, unlike my false one earlier.
Who seconds it?
I'll second.
Trevor's got it. And they all said.
Aye.
Thank you, folks. Merry Christmas.
This looks like the first apartment complex I moved to.